I have fallen into an approver's black hole, so that's all I want to talk about today. That's all I have on my list, is sort of like probing questions. But one is, I know we've been thinking about like this authored assigned review, potential new list layout, whatever there. But now that I have fallen into this approvers one, there's like all these requests to make it easier to see like which MRs either you need to approve or like just generally what is waiting for an approval. And so I wonder if we should like think about that in the context of this too. And I will say like, yes, you can filter by like, if you are explicitly listed as an approver, but you cannot filter the list in like a global way. Like I couldn't go look at like the entirety of the GitLab project and see which MRs are waiting for an approval unless I was an approver on all of them. And so like, I don't know if that's, and it seems like people sort of want that and want it for automation purposes too. So I guess my question is sort of like, how do we think about like that in the context of approver and, or in the context of assigned and reviewer, and then like approvers, which is not an explicit role we have, but an explicit role we have, where you could be not either one of the assignees or reviewers, but also be an approver. Like it is a role, but not a role.
Yeah. I think so. The way I see it is, or the way I think we should encourage the behavior is that you assign people as reviewers, and the reviewers will possibly fill the approval rules, and so they are eligible approvers. So when you're picking the reviewers, you're basically saying, I want people that can approve this merge request. And so that's the reviewer. The approvals, if I understand what you're saying, is some teams, they don't have the process of requesting reviews from one person. Sometimes they share the merge requests in Slack, or they check the list of open merge requests to see which ones they can review, for example. And so in that case, they would have to look at which merge requests they're eligible to approve, right? And so reviewers, again, is making the selection of, hey, this is the person I want to review, and that will approve the merge request. Then you have the eligible approvers, the people that can approve but are not reviewers yet. And yeah, I think in a way we could start thinking about how people can also easily navigate to those and see merge requests that I can approve and that I can help move forward. So it's basically merge requests that I can review at the end of the day. Yeah, so that's how I see it. I don't see the role of approver. I see the eligibility, the power to approve.
That's an interesting. That's an interesting way to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the way we navigate the lists today is it's too simple. We just have the assignees, you're assigned, you're not assigned, but it doesn't help you find the merge request for you to review. And yeah, there's so many things that we can do in that regard. We could even order the merge requests in a smart way so that we could show you which merge requests have files that you have reviewed in the past, for example. So we could do all of these smart things. So essentially, yeah, now that I'm seeing it this way, so one of the ideas that we have in the future is to improve the selection process of reviewers so that you can make better choices, and without placing the burden on the user to find exactly who should review. So we could take capacity into account. We could take um, prior experience and history of reviewing certain things or committing to certain directories or files. We could take of course, the approval rules into account. We could take even maybe in the future time zone into account, like what we're already doing with the danger bots. We could build that into GitLab and have people select their time zones, like you do, like you select the time zone for your Google Calendar, right? And it could be
Mm-hmm.
automatically changing. We could do the same in GitLab, but that is from the selection process. So I'm the author on the merge request and I'm selecting people and picking them. But maybe we could do the same thing for the opposite side. So instead of the author picking the reviewers, it would be the reviewers picking the merge requests that they want to review, right? And that's where I see the approvals or the eligibility to approve as one of the factors,
Mm-hmm.
and something that we already have built into the product, right? You select people to be approvers. We don't have capacity yet. We don't have all of that um, those smart factors, but approvals we already have in the eligibility to approve. So that's one other way to look into it. Yeah. Although, I don't know, my gut feeling tells me that it's not the most common way to review things, and that most teams don't follow that approach of having like a pile of merge requests and you pick what you want to review. Um, but yeah, it's certainly something that we can look into, because again, I think it's just reversing what we would be doing
The
for
other way.
picking a reviewer. It would be the opposite, picking the merge requests that best apply to you as a reviewer. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And I think the team concept is an interesting one. And yeah, I don't know much about that. I sort of what I gathered reading was more that like I, as someone who might be a manager or director or whatever, would want to see sort of like the list of things that need to be approved. And there's not a way like that are still pending approval. Right. And there's not a way for me necessarily like to see that if I want to like that level above sort of the people who might be actually doing something. I think that's sort of the missing view that they're thinking. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would say one, hilariously, this epic is epic one in the GitLab org group. Like it was the very first epic created. And it was like mislabeled and not attached to anything and has these issues and has like very little detail. And so like worth looking at and trying to form an opinion on it anyways. But um, I was just, yeah, I wanted to sort of like start that, like, how do we think about that? And then I think that feeds into the next one, which is how have we historically dealt with like who owns approvers, right? I would say that, and this is going to get, I'm guessing this has gotten more and more messy and complicated as GitLab has grown in product groups, but um, like I think there are lots of people who would have stakeholders that would approve an MR. Like part of that is people approving the code, part of that is people approving XYZ, whatever. And like the permissions to do that. I think historically permissions have been held at like the developer level. And then the release
Yes.
team, I guess, in the last little bit just made this insane workaround where if you create a group and give them explicit code owner permissions, you can allow them to approve stuff if they're guest or reporters, which feels like
Yeah.
wildly circumventing the existing permissions model. And and I don't know that anyone like knew about that or was like consulted, or if that was like something we wanted to happen. Like they did this to solve a different problem, but it sort of just opens up a loophole. It also seems like it's potentially broken. Um, in the same line, there's people who want merge request approvals for guest and reporter permission levels. And that issue is currently labeled as like a manage access issue and not, you know, not in code review. And there's also another issue that was floating around somewhere that's like labeled as a compliance issue for like compliance team to think about approvers. And so I'm trying to like, who technically like owns that? And then like, how do we feel about like these other things that are ongoing?
Great question. I think my opinion is that the, the group that has been most passionate about approvals and that I've seen, yeah, being more interested in how we can push approvals further, has recently been compliance. Because especially because the customers they talk to, the persona that they attend to, the compliance manager, that's what they do. That's
Right.
their bread and butter, is making sure things are compliant and that the right people have the right access to do the right things. Um, so I would even go as far as saying that approvals are a compliance mechanism. Um, and yeah, you're basically saying if something is compliant or not. But yeah, I think it could go, I could see it going many different ways. In terms of being in the group access, I'm not sure about that. I don't know. I don't have a particularly strong opinion. I mean, approvals are right now under source code. So these issues are source code, although to be honest, approvals only, I mean, they matter in the context of reviewing something, in the context of code review. Outside of code review, we're not approving anything else, right? You have to go into a merge request to approve something that hopefully you have reviewed. So that's the concept of, that's where they are used. Um, but yeah, it's not straightforward. But I would say source code for now, keeping and trying to centralize everything there. But I'm seeing compliance having a lot of interests in improving and extending the functionality of approvals. Um, yeah, about these two specific issues, yeah, I what I'm seeing is a what I'm seeing more and more is basically a way for people to set the permissions in the same way that we have protected branches today. So in protected branches, you can do, you can say who can merge, who can push, if it's developers and maintainers, or it's just developers or no one, or specific people. You can have the wildcards or specific branches. You can say if you want code owner approval for those branches or not. And what I'm seeing, or at least in my head, what is making more and more sense is to have all of that together also with approvals. And then you can say if like a guest or a reporter can approve. I'm not sure about the purpose of making a guest or reporter approves something. But yeah, I don't have a strong opinion.
Okay, so um, let me ask like a bigger question then. So like in specifics, like these issues that are sort of in this merger or in that epic are sort of all related to approvers and accessing that in the list view of merge requests. That we would consider to be, I guess from like a, should we think about doing prioritizing the work, we would reconsider that to be like a code review problem or code review space. And then the implementation details of what people can approve is not a code review thing. That's up to other groups that would want to do that. Primarily, probably source code, but potentially compliance would deal with like who can approve.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's hard to say. Um, it's hard to say, but basically all of that would trickle down, and the effects would be felt in code review. But we will just inherit the decisions that others will make about who can do what and how.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think it's just being, in terms of approvals, it's just being aware of what is being done as much as possible and trying to see how that impacts code review and how we can make it better in code review. Um, in the same way that, for example, code quality is now trying to have more helpful information in front of reviewers in merge requests, so that they can review better and make better decisions about whether they should approve something or not. Um, so yeah, it's always going to be a collaboration between all of these groups. But for the time being, I think trying to centralize things in source code as much as possible will hopefully create uh, these healthy discussions with other groups like access and compliance. And yeah, at the end of the day, we will see who is most passionate about this or that, and it will fall on that group's lap, basically. So yeah, I think we will have to iterate our way there.
Okay. I think that helps me know what I should care about for now.
Yeah, I think for code review, we have so many things to care about that I'm happy that we're not dealing with approvers because of what you're discovering. Approvals, everyone, there's so many groups interested in approvals, and we already have so many people interested in just the code review. So it's a lot of cross dependencies.
Yeah, I think one of the other things I was trying to figure out is I know we're very, I think code review has made some very explicit decisions about approvers and sort of tiers that stuff ends up in from like a pricing perspective. And those were largely held, well, those were largely held in the source code group when it was the combined source code review group and sort of how approvals worked. And
Mhm.
so I think my concern was sort of around the fact that like we had very strong opinions on those things. These other groups seemed to just sort of be solving problems, and it wasn't necessarily clear if like they were doing that as a way to like circumvent sort of where we had modeled and like placed features in certain tiers without thinking about like the overall impact to code review, right? Like when you open up approvals to like sort of like we intentionally like don't open approvals up if you're not in a paid tier, or like there's a generic approve button, but you can't define rules and do other things with it. And now like
Yes.
being conscious of like these other groups that are sort of adding things, or if you add guest and reporter, like does that only work in like these paid? And I don't know if they're thinking along those lines, or if we were making sure that those things were sort of enforced correctly across there. But I think we could just not. I think you're right. I think like some of that mechanic belongs in source code along with approval rules, so that's fine. We don't need to think about that. We will just consume however they all sort it out. But the MR list page, we could make that more discoverable, and that would not be the end of the world, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Yeah, I think I just wanted to, in the last minute that we have, I wanted to quickly go back to that issue about the navigation. And I think that the best thing that we can do right now is just proceed with the dropdown. Although I really wanted to move forward with that list of the review requests and assign to you and etc. I don't know. I kind of agree with you that the dropdown is what gets us there more quickly, and it's not an ideal experience, but yeah. I did we already enable? I don't think the merge request is sorry, I don't think the merge request is ready yet for the filter, right, to be enabled on GitLab.com.
The clarification from Marcia on the language to be used, so we can get it merged.
Oh, that's the last thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Okay, yeah. I commented an hour ago with whatever. Yeah, just okay. Yeah, just to
so
make a decision so we can get merged.
I agree. I think we need to get that merged. We need to get it on. I think we need probably. I don't think we have the issue then for doing the dropdown. So we'd need an issue. We could either use this issue and just update it completely. Which probably makes the most sense.
Yeah, I think we can create another issue just for the dropdown. And yeah, I kind of agree with you.
Yeah, to be clear, I don't think it's the long-term optimal solution, but I think it like probably immediately relieves pain, and then we can, and I think that also gives us the ability to like take that one step back and sort of go, well, how, instead of solving like this one micro problem, like how could we address the whole of that page to deal with like these other things, like the approval thing that we're going to look at, or reviewers that we need to look at, or merge requests assign you. How can we make that page sort of work like more of our competitors' pages do anyways, in like a sort of bigger overhaul of that, without needing to like immediately sort of deal with this one thing we were trying to deal with. So and then once we deal with it, we could maybe take away the dropdown and just send you to the merge request page, and it'll have all that information there.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to open the issue for the dropdown? Are you fine to do that?
Yeah, I can create one. Yep.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, we're over time. I appreciate it. Thanks for thinking through approvers with me. That helps help clarify my thinking. And Catherine, it's good to see you. Enjoy your pineapple under the sea, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.